All right, everyone, welcome back into another Fantasy Golf video. Going to be getting into the final thoughts here for the American Express tournament, guys. So we'll talk about my final outright bets and just bets in general, where I'll be looking at there. Then we'll be breaking down kind of the DFS process here, what I'm looking at for core plays and maybe some players that are coming in overvalued. And then we're going to jump on into some showdown and some prop betting talk here as well, guys. So hopefully not too long of a video, but breaking down a lot here for you guys. So with that, let's go ahead and get on into it. So I do want to go ahead and start out with the outright bets that we were getting for this week, guys. So for this tournament, we're getting 4 good outright bets. And now there's a little bit of asterisk on this because this is pulling data from just this season. So definitely an asterisk there for some of the data points. It's not like it's just from the season, but for Sky Scheffler to be qualifying for a player that would rank out as a good outright bet, which is what this is doing, this table here is doing, then he would have to have some data points, like strokes gained approach, basically, and a couple of other data points for this season. And again, what we're looking at here is and it says right here, we're measuring based off of the last several years' data, what players would rank out as, good outright bets based off of golfers that meet like the 80th percentile for all these certain categories that would make a good winner, again, based off of the previous seasons. And so for this tournament, it's Robert McIntyre, Harry Hall, Siwoo Kim, and Kurt Kitayama. Now for me, guys, you guys will see, I am okay getting to Robert McIntyre and Siwoo Kim. And so we go ahead and take a peek at some of the lines that we were getting here for Siwoo Kim, guys. 35-1 right now on DraftKings. I feel like that ends up being a pretty solid bet. So if you guys like that, I think that's a good betting opportunity. And then not too much in regards to the top 20 market for him, guys. Let's see. Top 10, maybe 3.6-1 on DraftKings. So DraftKings is seemingly hanging out some pretty good bets for us today or for this tournament. So, probably one of the better sites to bet on for this specific tournament. And Robert McIntyre will pull up his lines for you guys as well. Basically 25-1 across the board. I do think that those are pretty good spots from, again, those are the 2 best bets that we're getting. And then from there, Ben Griffin, it's Ben Griffin playing elite golf, played pretty good golf last week, was in contention, and I just think we need to roll with him. And then Russell Henley, one of the better golfers in the field, obviously, as well. So this is kind of a hedge on Sky Scheffler winning. And due to Sky Scheffler being in the field, guys, we are getting some pretty good lines on some golfers who, I think Ben Griffin's lines would be cut in half following a good week that he had last week, guys. So you can get about 22-1. I end up liking that number a decent amount. Russell Henley didn't necessarily play as well as I would have wanted to last week, especially at the start of the week, but it's not projected to be like windy or anything for this event. And so I kind of expect him to get going, and he is someone that you can get at about 25-1. Again, he'd probably be at 11-1 or 12-1 if Scotty simply weren't in the field. So it's kind of a bet on just Scotty not to win. And then you guys are going to notice I have a couple of long shot bets in there. Okay, so Lee Hodges, I mentioned at the start of the week, I did really like at 300-1. Just a golfer that has played this course decently well in the past, and then had also, we were getting this line at a very good number, but also, 2 top 10s over his last several starts. So we like that. You can still get him at 170-1. Then Seamus Power. I will say I was looking for longer shot bets for this tournament because longer shot bets do tend to win a decent amount here. And so I got to Seamus Power, partially due to a number, but partially because he is an appealing play. Okay, guys, so like looking at his just the lines that we're getting for him, 171 on DraftKings. Course history rank finished 14th at this event 4 years ago, so we don't necessarily love that. Recent form has been overall pretty solid, dating back to the fall swing. Had a fine week at the Sony Open, 31st place finish, but he's someone that just across the board, pretty darn appealing. The only one concern that we have with him is specialist-wise, ranks out 60th in the field. Again, for people that might not be familiar with the specialist data, that's just taking a peek at the unique characteristics for that week's tournament and putting into a data point. That's a concern, but that's also why we were getting him at such a long number. If you want him to just bet on him to like top 20, you get him about 5-1. I do think that that's a pretty good line for him as well. And then Patrick Rodgers, guys, it's weird with Patrick Rodgers. Like, he is kind of the prototypical, when he looks appealing, is probably the time that you shouldn't bet on him or be on him at all. And I do think he looks appealing this week. So he has struggled at this course, but at least he's played this course in this event, with it being a Pro-Am, just some weird nuanced stuff there. That could be part of it. Tough to really say for sure. But he's the 5th best staff in the field, guys. Recent form has been pretty darn solid recently. We see since the Black Desert Championship, where he finished top 30, we see a good finish at the World Wide Technologies Championship, not good at the Bermuda, and then RSM top 20, and then last week, guys, top 5. And so I don't mind chasing that form. Like, this is an event where form or just having, competitive rounds in does tend to be more important as well. And so I don't mind the idea of chasing that with Power or Rodgers. And then lastly, this is a bet where I felt like I had to be on because if he wins, I would just be kicking myself so much. So Kevin Roy was someone I was on a decent amount last year, if you guys recall that. He's someone that found himself in contention last week as well. Overall, only finished top 20 in the field, but there was a stretch of the season last year where he was very appealing. He was hitting the ball extremely well. And so given the fact that he had a top 20 at this tournament last year, and also given the fact that, he went to college in California, not exactly local ties, but he's, familiar with the area at least, like close enough. And so I do think him just finishing top 20 is creating a little bit of confirmation bias in this play, but I also like the fact that he's coming in off of a top 20 where he did find himself into contention. Maybe he does that again this week. And again, I didn't want to miss out on the long number that we were getting on him. About 200 to 1 is the best odds that you can get him at. I still don't mind him to top 20. And then just worth calling out, guys, some of these round 1 3-ball bets. So if we're betting on Siwoo Kim to win, we can get him to beat Davis Riley. Then Max Grayson only over Tony Finau, Vince Whaley over Mark Hubbard, and then Daniel Berger over Will Zalatoris. I was kind of surprised by that line. And then just kind of some interesting matchup tournament bets. JT Poston over Ryan Gerard, and then Russell Henley over Sam Burns. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and just kind of talk about the DFS approach then for this week as well for the Amex. I have kind of really settled in on I want to be on one of these 4 in all my builds, which is going to be Sky Scheffler, Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, or Siwoo Kim. With Siwoo Kim, Russell Henley, and Ben Griffin, they all played last week. So I do think that is pretty appealing to me. And I actually think we could easily get to Sky Scheffler and one of these other golfers in our builds as well if we choose to do so. Again, every golfer is going to get 3 rounds in this week. And so paying up for 2 golfers that have a good likelihood to top 10 is not a bad idea when you can back end that with some golfers that are going to score. Even if they don't play the final round, which obviously for GPPs, you're going to need that. But maybe for a cash contest, or if you're just focused on placing lineups that will cash, it's really not a bad idea to just target some players on the back end that will at least be able to finish better than their price tag, kind of treat it like a no-cut event, and then you're going to get those placement bonus points with like Scotty and Ben Griffin, or Scotty and Russell Henley, or Siwoo Kim. You could also fit Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, and Siwoo Kim all in a build together. That's really not too hard to do. I actually posted a bunch of sample lineups in the 9 to 5 members write-up, guys, that show you guys how to go about doing that. I think that's actually a pretty good lineup process approach for this week specifically, so I don't mind that. That's kind of overall been my lineup approach for the week thus far. And what I will say, what I like about this week, guys, is we're not really having to worry about the weather too much. This is from the PGA Tour website, but weather is not going to be playing an issue. One of the annoying parts about this tournament can be, it's like, oh, well, the Nicklaus Tournament course is playing a little bit easier today due to the wind not hitting it as much, and the Pete Dye course is now susceptible to more winds, and really you had to be on a golfer from the Nicklaus Tournament course to win. We're not seeing that at all this week, which does make this week much easier, which kind of means for lineup approaches, we don't have to mess with like which tournament course players are going off of. Now, it is worth calling out, guys, that I do have this in the data. So if you just type in course, that's the easiest way to go. So an attribute that I have in there, we have the Nicklaus Tournament course. So you can either start it by like round 2 showdown, which that's just kind of in there. We have the full slate as well in there for the Nicklaus Tournament course. You could select that. I don't think we need to do that though for this event now that there's no weather issues. But for showdown lineups, you definitely could do this. So you could do, and this is the NT course, guys, you could do round 2 for showdown just in general. And then we could also do the LQ course. And if you want to put a little bit of an AM emphasis on it, you could as well. So for showdown purposes, I do think that that's going to be the correct route to go. And so you could definitely do lineups based off of that. And it will prioritize golfers that are playing off of those courses a little bit more. The adjusted fantasy score will adjust based off of the attributes that you have selected there. Now, if you want to ensure that you're going to get a specific player in there, you do need to bump up their projections a little bit more. Just like if you want to get to Scotty Scheffler, you probably might need to bump up his minimum to at least 15, maybe 30. I don't know if you necessarily need to do that on the slate. And then someone like Harry Hall, who's going off of the Pete Dye course, which is typically a little bit more difficult. Maybe you cap him at about 5%. And I would argue you can even do more than that. Like you don't need to get to him. And so then we look at some of the top lineups that we're able to produce. This is what we're looking at. And that'd be for round 1 showdown. Now, again, guys, for the main slate, I don't think we have to do anything too crazy. I think you can just kind of run lineups based off of what you see fit. And again, I'm perfectly happy to get to Sky Scheffler. The question is Sky Scheffler coming in a little bit over-owned? Okay, we're seeing his ownership come in at that very high 40%. And so if you go to the classic slate here, it's coming in at 43%. It's very high. I don't mind that idea of just being even weight on the field. I don't think you have to really make a stance on him. But what I do like is a play like Russell Henley is now kind of, because he's coming in that high owned, is coming in undervalued. And so he is someone that I do want to be overweight in the field. Okay, if he's going to come in that low owned, I do want to be on that. And I do think it's worth calling out here, guys. We're starting to get to the point where Sky Scheffler could come in a little bit over-owned, which is a little bit concerning. And then we look at the golfers that are under-owned. Russell Henley is going to be the best leverage play. Now, it is worth calling out, guys, last week, this was pretty spot on. That's not always going to be the case. But the under-owned players were pretty spot on last week. Hopefully that ends up hitting today. But nothing, or for this week, nothing too crazy here, guys. Like Russell Henley is still coming in properly owned there, but he's like the number one priority if you want to gain a leverage on the field. Okay. Harris English a little bit under-owned, Obear a little bit under-owned, Kurt Kitayama a little bit under-owned as well. So a little bit of leverage opportunities here for this week. So guys, I do want to get into some prop bets here for round one as well, but kind of to do that, what we're going to do is actually we're going to take a peek at the players by course and how they're projected to play in round one. And I think that's important to call out, because if you are betting on like prop bets and whatnot for round one, it is very important to know which players are, playing on the easier track. So we'll start with the Nicklaus Tournament course, which golfers are projected to be, decent plays. This is kind of looking at showdown rank wise, but it's also going to apply to the players that we want to be betting on prop betting wise as well. So like Ben Griffin, Robert McIntyre, Siwoo Kim, Patrick Cantlay are all pretty decent plays for round one in terms of who's expected to play well. Now on this course, you kind of expect everyone to play well, but we are seeing something like Adam Scott pull up here. And I think this is important to call out, because one of the more interesting bets that we were getting in terms of like prop line differences is actually Adam Scott to get under 6 birdies or better on Underdog. And I think this ends up being a pretty solid bet for us to get to. He's not typically someone that's going to be a significant scorer, although he probably does get to 6. That's kind of the tough part here. Like same thing with Russell Henley. He probably does end up getting to 6. If you want to bet on these guys to get over 5.5 birdies or better, you can do that. Again, the scoring conditions are pretty easy. I do think that these all are going to be pretty decent chances that they end up middling. Like getting to 7 birdies will be tough. Getting to 6, not as difficult. And so it is kind of a weird spot where we could end up betting on the unders and overs, on like overs on PrizePicks, under on Underdog. But at 6, I do think that line's a little bit too low. And then another bet that I actually like as well is going to be betting on Ben Griffin to actually get under his strokes. I know the data is only giving him a 50.4% likelihood for that to hit. I get that. I kind of like the under. I think Ben Griffin is going to have a good round, especially on this tournament course. And so I think that's going to be the best way to go about like placing some of the bets for PGA. So then we'll jump on into the PrizePicks tab here, guys. And so kind of the same stuff. And what I will say, what I like about PrizePicks is actually telling you guys which course they're playing on. So that does make it a little bit easier. So stadium course, more difficult. Nicklaus Tournament course, easier. La Quinta, a little bit easier as well. But that being said, that's where like Adam Scott for under his birdies or better is a somewhat appealing bet. Now, I do want to call it, guys, that the data is a little bit skewed here, tiny bit edgewise. It's not exactly adjusting for the course specific courses that players are playing on. That's not exactly how I have the data set up edgewise. So for every other tool on 9to5sports.com, it's going to be based off of the average sportsbook line, like whichever line that we're getting from different sites, it's going to be based off that. For golf, it's a little bit different. It's going to be based off of the course average. Okay, so we are pulling in the course average, but it's compiling together for every player, and it's doing the player average against the course average and based off of the projections for that round, how they are projected to play. And so they're all together. That doesn't mean that these are necessarily terrible bets. I just would rather be getting to bets that aren't these birdies or better. I do still like Adam Scott, though, for under 6 birdies or better. I typically like looking at these spots where we are going to get these prop line differences. And the biggest prop line difference that we are getting right now is with Jason Day. Is that one still up? So yeah, guys, Jason Day to get under 4.5 birdies or better is a seemingly good bet. Okay. Or sorry, to get under 5.5 birdies or better on Underdog, to me, is a seemingly good bet. You could bet on his over 4.5 birdies or better, but I think ultimately the better bet would be on under a 4.5 on Underdog. That to me is what the data is telling us to do there. Now, I was hoping we'd begin some fairway prop bets we could get to. I don't mind the idea of betting on Robert McIntyre to get under 67.5 strokes on Underdog as well. And so to give you guys kind of a simple Underdog bet, well, let's just go with these two. I think that ends up being kind of a safe bet, but all in all, I don't mind it. And then from there, guys, we really aren't getting anything too crazy like strokes wise right now. So I'll give you guys the PrizePicks bet slip as well. And so while I was recording this video, it looks like the two sites had flip-flopped the bets that we were getting. And so now we're looking at Scott for under 6 birdies or better, and then Ben Griffin under 67 strokes. Okay, so not terrible. Again, getting to 7 birdies or better is going to be difficult to do. So I do end up liking that bet a decent amount. But that's going to do it for this video. Appreciate everyone being here. Make sure to leave a like on the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel as well. If you guys would like access to all the tools that you saw throughout this video, make sure to head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to all the tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. If you guys are interested in signing up for PrizePicks and Underdog and you guys have never done so before, make sure you use the promo codes in the links in the description below. It's a simple and easy way to help out the channel. They do kick back money my way when you guys do that, so it's an easy way to help out, kind of a smaller channel. Appreciate you guys. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.